chance earlier this year to do another one moderated by Fox News, but turned it down. Today, Harris accepted an invitation for another debate on October 23rd, moderated by CNN. An Israeli airstrike has targeted Hezbollah. The Lebanese health ministry says the missile strike leveled an apartment building, killing at least 37 people on Friday. Rav Sanchez is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
That it struck and killed Ibrahim Akil, one of Hezbollah's top military commanders.
Fewer than half of the dead were members of the group. I'm Lisa Carton.
This is 24/7 News from iHeartRadio.
A recent poll conducted by Florida Atlantic University found that only 19% of Republicans nationwide are planning to vote by mail. FAU pollster Kevin Wagner says part of the problem is that some states wait until after polls close on Election Day to count those mail-in ballots.
Gives the perception to people like my candidate was winning, and then all of a sudden all these mail-in ballots came in and now they're losing. I mean, technically all ballots count the same, right? But, when you count them in that order, it makes some people feel as if something crooked is happening.
Earlier this year, former President Donald Trump said if you have mail-in voting, you automatically have fraud, but he has since been open to the idea. The House has unanimously passed a bill that increases protection for presidential and vice presidential candidates. It comes just days after a second apparent assassination attempt on former President Trump. The bill calls for the Secret Service to provide the same standard of protection for presidents, vice presidents, and major presidential and vice presidential candidates. They face scrutiny since the first attempt on Trump's life. That's politics. I'm Brad Siegel.
Markets rallied Thursday as investors reacted positively to the Federal Reserve's decision to cut interest rates by a half point. The Dow jumping more than 500 points to a new record high, while the S&P 500 also hit a new all-time high. The NASDAQ led the way with gains of 2.5%. The rally was widespread, with AI chip giant NVIDIA powering gains in the S&P, along with Olive Garden parent company Darden Restaurants. The Fed cut and data showing fewer people applied for unemployment benefits last week, adding to the enthusiasm. Lower rates help markets by making it easier for households and businesses to borrow money and boosting prices of all types of investments, from stocks to bonds, gold, and cryptocurrencies. The White House is announcing $3 billion in federal funding to go to more than 24 battery technology projects. The funding is to help move towards climate-friendly and battery-powered energy sources. Pending approval, the Energy Department and the Biden administration say that 25 selected projects represent around 12,000 jobs in 14 states. The funding comes from the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure law. Boeing is announcing temporary layoffs of thousands of employees. This comes as 33,000 International Association of Machinists at Boeing are on strike. CEO Kelly Ortberg told employees Wednesday that the furloughs will begin over the coming days. The furloughs will happen on a rotating basis, with employees being off for 1 week every 4 weeks. Ortberg said he and other executives will take a pay cut for the duration of the strike. Macy's plans to hire more than 31,000 full and part-time employees for the holidays, fewer than last year, as the department store gears up for the busy season. Silvana Anau has more.
Retailers are expected to hire fewer people this year due to a softer labor market and with consumers tightening their belt heading into the crucial shopping period, which typically accounts for more than half of stores' revenue.
With consumer and business news, I'm Erin Real.
All news, all the time. 24/7 News from iHeartRadio.
President Biden is hosting world leaders at a weekend summit in Delaware. He's holding bilateral meetings with the leaders of Australia, India, and Japan near his home in Wilmington for his final summit of the Quad Alliance. The White House says the leaders will discuss foreign policy with a focus on military cooperation and shared concerns about China's ambitions in the region. Biden has invited the leaders to an informal dinner tonight as they wrap up their work at the two-day event. Tensions are high after an Israeli airstrike in Beirut targeted Hezbollah. The Lebanese health ministry says the missile strike leveled an apartment building, killing at least 37 people on Friday. Rav Sanchez is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Israel is saying that it struck and killed Ibrahim Akil, one of Hezbollah's top military commanders.
Fewer than half of the dead were members of the group. Iran warned Saturday that such attacks make a widespread conflict more likely in the Middle East. Early voting in the 2024 presidential election is underway in 3 states. Voters in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Virginia began casting ballots on Friday. Meanwhile, the Arizona Supreme Court says nearly 100,000 voters whose citizenship eligibility was up in the air will be allowed to vote a full ballot. Their status was in question after election officials discovered an error in the state's voter registration system. The Food and Drug Administration is approving the first ever at-home flu vaccine. On Friday, the FDA announced the approval of a nasal spray vaccine called Flu Mist to be administered at home without a healthcare provider present. Flu Mist can be given to kids and adults between 2 and 49 years of age. FDA officials say at-home flu vaccines are more convenient and accessible for most people. Week 3 of the NFL season kicks off tomorrow. The Sunday slate will be headlined by the Dallas Cowboys hosting the Baltimore Ravens. I'm Lisa Carton. California Congressman Jared Huffman called Project 2025 an unprecedented takeover plan.
It proposes rolling back fundamental rights, imposing draconian policies that are deeply unpopular with most Americans.
Huffman's leading a task force that's trying to shine a spotlight on Project 2025, which was developed by the conservative Heritage Foundation. Former President Trump has attempted to distance himself from it, while Kamala Harris has made it one of her main talking points against him. Democrats say part of it involves limiting access to abortion nationwide, and that's expected to play large in next week's hearing. No Republicans will take part. A recent poll conducted by Florida Atlantic University found only 19% of Republicans nationwide are opting to vote by mail. FAU pollster Kevin Wagner says part of the problem is that some states wait until after polls close on Election Day to count mail-in ballots.
Gives the perception to people like my candidate was winning, and then all of a sudden all these mail-in ballots came in and now they're losing. I mean, technically all ballots count the same, right?
Earlier this year, former President Trump said if you have mail-in voting, you automatically have fraud, but has since been open to the idea. A House task force will hold its first hearing next week on the Trump assassination attempts. Michael Kastner reports.
The hearing set for next Thursday will focus on the Secret Service reliance on state and local law enforcement at Trump's July rally in Pennsylvania, where the former president was grazed by a bullet. The bipartisan task force will also look at the recent incident at Trump International Golf Course in West Palm Beach, Florida, where a gunman was found hiding in the bushes not far from where Trump was playing golf. The task force will submit its final report by mid-December.
Day 2 of the annual iHeartRadio Music Festival is tonight in Las Vegas. Stars taking the stage tonight will include The Weeknd, Doja Cat, Halsey, and Keith Urban. If you can't travel, it will be live streamed on Hulu starting at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm Lisa Carton.
Apple's new iPhone 16 is available now.
3, 2, 1.
The new models hit stores nationwide and around the world Friday and mark the company's latest move into artificial intelligence. Those features will begin to launch in October. On the same day, Apple's Watch Series 10 and AirPods 4 also made their debuts. The White House is announcing $3 billion in federal funding for over 24 battery technology projects. The funding is to help the U.S. move toward more climate-friendly and battery-powered energy sources. The Biden administration says the 25 selected projects will represent around 12,000 jobs in 14 states. And Cruise wants to resume its robo-taxi service in California after state regulators pulled the fleet nearly a year ago due to a series of accidents. The company deployed a small group of vehicles Thursday with drivers to map Sunnyvale and Mountain View. Testing with someone behind the wheel will start in the fall. Tech Report. I'm Matt Mattinson.
This is 24/7 News from iHeartRadio.
After the final night of the WNBA regular season, the playoff matchups are set. It'll be number 1 New York Liberty versus number 8 Atlanta Dream, number 2 Minnesota Lynx versus number 7 Phoenix Mercury, number 3 Connecticut Sun versus number 6 Indiana Fever, and the number 4 Las Vegas Aces versus number 5 Seattle Storm. First round tips on Sunday. For more women's sports stories, subscribe to Good Game with Sarah Spain on iHeart Podcasts.
You're listening to 24/7 News from iHeartRadio.
Former President Trump says he won't take part in another debate. Speaking at a rally in Wilmington, North Carolina today, Trump said there shouldn't be another presidential debate because voting has already started in some states.
It's too late to do another. I'd love to in many ways, but it's too late. The voting is cast. The voters are out there.
He went on to criticize Harris's comments, calling for another debate, claiming she had a chance earlier this year to do another one moderated by Fox News, but turned it down. Today, Harris accepted an invitation for another debate on October 23rd, moderated by CNN. An Israeli airstrike has targeted Hezbollah. The Lebanese health ministry says the missile strike leveled an apartment building, killing at least 37 people on Friday. Rob Sanchez is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
That it struck and killed Ibrahim Akil, one of Hezbollah's top military commanders.
Fewer than half of the dead were members of the group. I'm Lisa Carton.
24/7 News from iHeartRadio.
Jane's Addiction's tour is canceled, but they're still releasing new music. The band's out with a new song called True Love. This after the band canceled its remaining U.S. tour dates following an onstage altercation. Meantime, guitarist Dave Navarro taking to social media to say he's proud of the new song, but he's equally saddened by the fact that fans will likely never hear it live. Metallica extending their M72 World Tour into next year. The Rock and Roll Hall of Famers kick off their 2025 tour with a headlining set at Sick New World Festival in Las Vegas. They'll be making stops in cities like Atlanta, Nashville, Philadelphia, Denver, and Syracuse. Ticket sales start next week.
So if I get jealous, I can't help.
The body cam video of Justin Timberlake's DWI arrest on Long Island back in June won't be released to the public. TMZ reports Timberlake and the Office of the Suffolk County DA came to an agreement to keep that video sealed. The 43-year-old pop star pleaded guilty to a traffic violation and driving while ability impaired. He'll pay a $500 fine, and he'll be doing community service as part of his plea deal. And Transformers 1 expected to triumph at the box office when it debuts in theaters this weekend. It's slated to bring in between 30 and 40 million. That should be enough to knock Beetlejuice down to second place. Also new in theaters this week, the thriller Never Let Go, starring Halle Berry. That's entertainment. I'm Liz Warner.
Road to the White House 2024. Former President Trump gave remarks at the Israeli-American Council's National Summit in Washington, D.C. on Thursday.
More than any people on earth, Israel has to defeat her. I really believe that it's a disaster for Israel.
Trump spoke on what may happen for Israel if Kamala Harris was elected, while also promising to reinstate his travel ban. He went on to add that the upcoming election is the most important election in the history of Israel. The Fighting Anti-Semitism in America event also featured Miriam Adelson, the widow of longtime GOP donor